SVC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily Podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
Spain is once again debating whether to enforce new restrictions on the iGaming industry. Merely a year after the Supreme Court ruled against the royal decree's clampdown on marketing and advertising, the government is back at it, and this time, bonuses are the target. Welcome to iGaming Daily. It's Groundhog Day. I'm your host, Fernando Not, media manager for SVC, and I'm joined today by Damian Martinez, business journalist for SVC Noticias. Damian, how are you?
All is good, Fer. How are you?
All good. Enjoying Groundhog Day, of course. Same old, but we have to cover it. And to make some comparisons with other markets, we have Tom Nightingale, senior business journalist for Canadian gaming businesses and SVC Americas. Tom, how are you today?
Yeah, very well. Always it's an interesting topic, isn't it? Gambling advertising. It never goes away either. So interesting one to chat about.
Yeah, definitely, because of course the industry always is looked down maybe upon and tends to have a bad image. And whenever anyone sees an advertisement for any gaming platforms, they will go like, "Hey, why are we promoting this? Why are we promoting that?" And of course they ignore the part where the industry employs a ton of people and everything and generates a lot of money. But anyways, we will discuss this during today's episode of iGaming Daily, which is supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market, and of course sponsor of iGaming Daily. But Dami, let's get to it. iGaming is once again in the spotlight of the government in Spain, which just released a new report that is targeting welcome bonuses.
Yes, Fer. The Spanish Ministry of Consumption has presented a report indicating that the number of online players has increased by 21% during 2024, just as welcome bonuses offered by online casinos started to be legal again. But this trend is not stopping because, according to data from the ministry, in the first quarter of 2025, the number of online players also grew by approximately 10%.
Yeah, it's definitely something to look into, but they are actually claiming that welcome bonuses are responsible for this recent increase in the numbers of Spanish bettors. Is there actually any concrete evidence that this is the case?
Well, there is no direct evidence linking the player growth to promotional bonuses, but the Spanish government, this administration especially, has always had a tense relationship with the gaming industry, especially online gaming. So they are always looking to make new restrictions to the market. Of course, there is a link, but to believe that this is only explained by these marketing tools is a very large simplification. The authorities are explaining that these bonuses, which are used as incentives to attract new players, of course, were banned until April 2024, and since then, the number of players has grown significantly.
And of course, the gaming industry has been in the spotlight, like I said, for some time in Spain. Let's remember that in 2020, they enforced this royal decree of communications that enforced a major clampdown on gambling advertising, sponsorships in sports. So they are actually targeting gaming for quite some time now. And this is seriously not a big surprise. Like I said, it's Groundhog Day in Spain, but jokes aside, it's kind of a expected move from the Spanish government, as they have already been targeting the gaming industry for some time with the royal decree of communication. However, this decree only lasted for 4 years because last year a Supreme Court ruling actually repealed most of the restrictions that the decree was enforcing. So looks like the government is actually trying to find a way to once again come after the iGaming industry. So can we expect any further restrictions in the future?
Well, after the publication of these numbers, the Minister of Consumption said that they will push for an amendment to the upcoming customer service law that will include a ban for this type of marketing tools. Well, let's say that the government has always had an eye for the online gaming market, but if this is approved, the ban will cement Spain as one of the toughest European countries for betting companies, from a marketing perspective, of course. Because, for example, they have a complete ban on betting sponsorships since 2020, like you mentioned. And also the companies can make ads in certain times of the day.
Yeah, actually, the Directorate of Games in Spain was recently released a report saying that 526 million euros were invested in marketing campaigns by Spanish betting firms during 2024, divided through promotions, 261 million euros, advertising, 203 euros, membership expenses, 56 million euros, and sponsorships, 5.45 million euros. So gaming companies are, of course, making a lot of a big investment in advertising, but now they are targeting bonuses, which are also one of the main tools that gaming operators use to increase player engagement or even get new users. But this is not new for Tom, who is here. He's not just here to witness this podcast recording, even though we haven't addressed you, Tom, so far. But you, as our expert in the Canadian market, are not a stranger to this type of restrictions, as bonuses are restricted also to some extent in Ontario, right?
Yeah, I mean, so for those not particularly, anyone listening not particularly well-versed in the Canadian gaming market, Ontario, the only province in Canada that allows commercial brands, FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, whoever, to get an online gaming license and, work under regulation in the province. Ontario has proven itself it's been open for 3 years. April 2022, regulated iGaming began, and it has proven itself to be a hugely lucrative and competitive market. Just to set the scene a little bit more, there's 50 operators plus the government lottery, who previously held the monopoly. 85 licensed websites, I think, at the last count. All of these guys competing for market share, right, and for players' money. But one thing that the market regulator did from day one is said, we don't want to have a situation like we have in a lot of US markets where people are inundated with, sign up and you'll get a deposit, get a deposit bonus, or bet, sign up and make a first bet of $10 and you'll get, $50 in bonus credits, or that sort of stuff. In the US, typically, that kind of marketing is everywhere, and it's a big way that operators compete with one another. Ontario's regulator, the Alcohol Gaming Commission of Ontario, said from before the market opened, we don't want to have that. We don't want our operators to do that. They are allowed to market those kind of welcome bonuses on their own websites and their own platforms. So, like, if you are a DraftKings customer, for example, and you open the DraftKings app, or I guess if you're not already a customer, like if you download the app and you open the app looking to sign up for DraftKings, those bonuses still do exist. DraftKings just can't market them broadly in public advertising. It's just against regulations. And it's been very interesting. You'll hear a lot of operators say out loud publicly that they quite like this approach. Whether you'd expect them to say anything else in public is debatable. They're hardly going to come out and, stamp their feet about it. But I think the general consensus is it means that operators have to sort of compete on, the strength of their product and their services, really, rather than, who's offering the biggest pile of money to somebody signing up and making a first deposit.
Yeah, definitely. It's actually quite an old tool. These welcome bonuses is being from there for like forever. And I think it only makes sense that the industry starts evolving into different types of approaches to marketing, not only for a matter of competing, because of course there's a bigger competition there, but also player protection, because I can get behind the thought of, hey, this company is promising you'll get like 100% bonus of your deposit. So it's basically promising you free money to some extent. So of course that's not the case. It's more elaborate than that. But I can understand the reasoning behind people going after this type of promotion tools. But I find it very interesting as well that you said that operators have not been quite as they haven't been fighting this measure in Ontario. How does this restriction actually impact operators, and how different do you think marketing is for them with this type of restriction in place?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, in Ontario, it was certainly an adjustment, I think, for a lot of operators at first, particularly, I would say, these kind of big brands who are also operational in the US, where this stuff, generally speaking, although it's state by state with the regulations in the US, but generally speaking, in the US, they can advertise these kind of welcome bonuses. So particularly in the first few months of the Ontario market being open, you did see quite a few instances of the Ontario regulator, the AGCO, having to fine operators for violating these regulations. I think they took a certain leniency, knowing that it was going to be quite a big adjustment for a lot of these brands. And undoubtedly, as the market has aged, I said we're like 3.5 years into the market now. As the market has gone on, the instances of, reported violations of these advertising things have reduced significantly, because I think everyone's sort of got used to it. And honestly, I think for the most part, everything I hear, operators sort of embraced it quite early on, really. And like I said, it forces them, I think the idea is that it forces them to compete on product and in other ways. One thing I will say is that, Ontario is a very interesting case, because as well as the welcome bonuses aspect, they also implemented other restrictions. About 2 years into the market, they changed some stuff. So, for example, they implemented a rule that you can only use either active or retired athletes. You can use them in your marketing, but only for the specific purpose of advertising your responsible gambling measures. So I think there's been another pivot where instead of advertising these welcome bonuses or whatever, you're kind of competing on product, but you do have an opportunity to lean on, familiar faces and brand names. BetMGM, a very good example, might not mean very much to a non-North American crowd, but they have their ambassadors include Wayne Gretzky, arguably the greatest ice hockey player ever, Connor McDavid, arguably the greatest current ice hockey player, both Canadian, both appealing very largely to a Canadian audience, even in Ontario, although they are most famous for playing for teams in Alberta. BetMGM also has big deals, people like Jamie Foxx, like these kind of superstar people. And while they can only use those people in Ontario to market responsible gambling, that is something that operators have leaned into in some cases, I think, a bit more, because they haven't been able to advertise this big sell of, deposit $50 and you get 200 in bonus bets or whatever that we see a lot of in the US. So I think it's, broadly speaking, I think it has probably achieved a lot of its aims, which I think was to make sure, that customers, the player protection aspect, make sure that customers aren't inundated with offers. It's interesting to hear you use say that a lot of marketing purports to offer sort of free money. That's a big debate in the US, particularly at the moment, is should you be able to use free money or those kind of terms in marketing, when it's debatable if any money that you get as a sportsbook or a casino player is ever free. But yeah, I think it forces operators to think outside the box a little bit more, right? And to really hone in on the products and services that they're actually offering, rather than sort of chucking money at the average consumer.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to think about, especially for Spanish regulators. And if they are looking to Ontario, they're probably going to pick up some of these restrictions as inspiration, probably, because, of course, nothing's new, nothing's embedded. Everyone is copying other markets, even if they're bad. Like governments tend to copy some measures that other countries take, even if they're bad. But we will continue to analyze this after a very, very quick ad break. Please stay there. We'll be right back.
SBC Leaders connects the gambling industry's top-tier operators and associations to share the best ideas, collaborate on solving the biggest issues, and push innovation throughout the betting and gaming industry. If you're an operator and want to join the discussion, visit sbcleaders.com for more information.
And we are back with more iGaming Daily to continue discussing advertising and promotion restrictions after the one enforced or soon to be enforced in Spain as announced by the local government. But Dami, Why do you reckon, or what do you reckon actually, that motivates this type of restriction? Is it actually a genuine strategy to promote a safer gambling environment, or do you think it's more of a matter of sensationalism?
Well, I think it's kind of both. I think it comes from a posture of trying to promote to the public that they are working on problems like problem gambling and safer gambling. But I think there are also an exaggeration, a posture that to gain votes. I think that's the only the real stance from governments. I mean, the numbers of the online gambling in Spain, for example, they're really good. They are really generating income for tax. So it's really controversial to approach with these kind of measures to the market. But of course, the gambling has always been a difficult industry for politics. So they have to make like they're doing something against problem gambling.
Yeah, it's definitely a whole lot of make it look like they try to they are against the industry, but not so much, because they of course love that tax money that's coming into the state coffers. But nobody wants to be the guy that regulates online gaming or betting, and nobody wants to be the guy to legalize casinos like we're seeing in Brazil. Like President Lula da Silva is like, I'm against it, but if we approve it, okay. So they all want that tax money, but every time they get a chance to take a stab at the industry, they will, for sure. And definitely the voting situation increases that whole sense of, okay, we have to make it look like we're doing something. But at the same time, some of the industry tends to be quite aggressive on their marketing, on their promotion at times. So the industry also needs to take a look within and say, hey, what do we need to do? And we actually, there's actually a campaign in Argentina that's similar to what Tom was mentioning about Ontario, with celebrities promoting safer gambling, right, Dami?
Yes, in Argentina, there's been a discussion recently. A deputy from the country is urging the Senate to move forward with the approval of a bill that bans gambling advertising in the country. The bill was already approved by the Chamber of Deputies last November, and now it also has to be voted on the Senate. The text established a ban on all type of advertising on social media, internet, public spaces, and existing or future media outlets. It also established that sponsorships of sports teams and individual athletes, as well as any promotion of sports betting in stadiums, will be prohibited.
And of course, we have a Bplay promoting safe gambling with Emiliano Martinez, Dibu Martinez, the goalkeeper for the Argentine national football team, and Aston Villa. But moving on to what's next for this type of campaigns against promotions, against marketing, or rather a clampdown on marketing. Do you guys see other regions, regulators imitating this type of push, like Spain has suggested it will go forward with?
Well, still hasn't been the discussion in, for example, mature markets like Colombia or newcomers like Peru. I don't see that they will be doing anything in the next months or years, but probably Chile. Chile is discussing right now their online gambling market and then online gambling law, and they are in the middle of some discussions about this topic. But we will have to wait and see to see what comes next for them.
And what about the Americans, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, what I'd say about I think you made a good point earlier when we were talking about the motivations behind this sort of stuff. Like, there's always going to be some level of political element, right? Like, I would like to think that in Ontario, the reason they introduced it was primarily player protection. In the US, I mean, given that everything is regulated on a state-by-state basis, to your point, like state lawmakers, state gambling regulators want to be seen to be doing things that are ostensibly to protect the consumer and the gambler. Like, that's never going to change. There's a certain amount of political posturing there, I think. And to that, so, you know, to that end, gambling advertising and marketing comes up every single year in the US in terms of like potential gambling legislation, regulatory changes. We've seen a few things happen already this year, like even just, I think this week, the Illinois gambling regulator introduced a ban on advertising on college campuses. That's similar to New Jersey did something recently where they passed a ban. I think the specifics of the New Jersey one is that colleges and college sports teams can't partner with gambling companies or anything like that, which I have to say is not something you see very often anyway, because that's generally pretty frowned upon, I think, even if it's not actually sort of against the rules. And I mean, we've seen states evolve. Like there are several states that have addressed what we mentioned earlier, the use of free bets or free money, that sort of stuff. Several states have introduced legislation or regulations to tighten up on that, or even to perhaps not allow it at all. So I think it's never going to be out of the conversation, really. You can see how big gambling advertising, how big of an issue it is for some lawmakers, that in both the US and Canada, there are currently federal level discussions going on. A couple of lawmakers in the Senate and the House in the US have proposed a massive sweeping bill, the Safe Bet Act, part of which involves, I think, almost if not actually a blanket ban on gambling advertising, which is something that for various reasons, is not going to happen. But even the fact that it's being proposed, I think, shows what a big issue it is to a lot of people. Similar in Canada, there's a debate. Again, a full ban isn't going to happen, but there's a big last year in the Senate in Canada, a bill was passed that would establish like a national framework for gambling advertising, because again, currently that's something that's the provinces. Like in the US, it's the state's prerogative. In Canada, it's the province's kind of duty to manage their own gambling markets. But there's talk about introducing federal oversight of advertising because it's seen as such an issue, and it's seen as so pervasive and ubiquitous. So I think whatever the actual specifics are, this it's certainly not a conversation that's going to go away anytime soon across North America.
For sure. And if you want to keep up to date with this information or any developing stories, whether it is Spain, Canada, the US, anywhere in the world, make sure you are subscribed to all SBC Media newsletters. You just have to go and access any site where it can be SBC Noticias, it can be Canadian Gaming Business. Go to the newsletter site and you can select all the newsletters you want to subscribe to. And of course, you should be subscribed to all of them because they cover a lot of different markets that are sure going to be looking into what happens in Spain. But that has been all for today with in iGaming Daily. Thank you very much, Dami, Tom. Thank you very much, Anaya McDonald, for producing this episode. And to our listeners out there, we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily podcast, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News network or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.